Hyun's forearms moved across the holographic display with practiced precision. The young cartographer had been working at the Galactic Cartography Institute for 3 cycles now, and the job still filled him with wonder. Every day, he updated star charts that were used by millions of ships across the galaxy. Trade routes, resource locations, territorial boundaries, all of it passed through his careful hands. Today's task seemed simple enough. Update the Eastern Quadrant maps with new probe data. Hyun pulled up the latest scans and began the routine process of integration. His compound eyes could process multiple data streams at once, a trait that made his insectoid species particularly good at this work. Then he noticed something strange. The data from the probes simply stopped at a certain boundary. Beyond that line, there was nothing. No stars marked, no planets cataloged, no trade routes drawn. Just empty space on the map. Hyun checked the probe telemetry. The probes had definitely traveled beyond that boundary. They had sent back readings. But somehow, none of that information was being added to the charts. He tried manually entering the coordinates. The computer rejected his input. Access denied. Hyun sat back, confused. In 3 cycles of work, he had never encountered a system rejection like this. He opened the historical archives, thinking perhaps there was some bureaucratic restriction he didn't know about. What he found made his confusion deepen into something closer to unease. Every map in the archive showed the same pattern. For the past 847 standard years, ever since humanity had joined the Galactic Council, there had been a distinct boundary marked on all official charts. The boundary was labeled with universal warning glyph symbols that meant danger, no entry, authorized personnel only. And beyond that boundary, the maps were blank. Not incomplete. Not awaiting data. Deliberately blank. Hyun searched for any explanation in the files. There was none. Just a brief note attached to the original treaty documents. Human territorial boundaries to remain unmapped per Council Agreement 7 Alpha. He tried searching for what lay within human space. The computer would only tell him that humans controlled 1,247 star systems. But the map showed detailed information for only 89 of them. The rest were part of the blank zones. His curiosity now fully awakened, Hyun decided to ask someone directly. He went to find Director Voss, the station's administrator. The director was a member of a crystalline species, their body made of living mineral that refracted light in beautiful patterns. Right now, those patterns were shifting to darker hues. Director, Hyun began, I found something odd in the mapping protocols. The human territories. Stop. Voss's voice resonated from deep within their crystalline form. Do not pursue this inquiry. But I don't understand. Why are the maps incomplete? Voss's body darkened further, the light within dimming to almost nothing. Hyun had never seen such a reaction from the usually calm director. It is not a question of incomplete data. It is the oldest treaty in the modern galaxy. Do not question the human exclusion zones. But why? What are they hiding? I do not know, Voss said quietly, and I do not wish to know. I recommend you adopt the same policy. The director turned away, ending the conversation with unusual abruptness. Hyun left the office more confused than before. A treaty that old, that absolute, that even the director feared to discuss. It made no sense. The galaxy was built on transparency and cooperation. Every species shared their territorial maps, their resources, their discoveries. It was the foundation of the Galactic Council. Every species except humanity. He thought about what he knew of humans. They were pleasant enough at diplomatic functions. They traded fairly, honored their agreements, and contributed to council decisions. But they kept to themselves. Their ships rarely ventured far from their territory. And when asked about their space, They always deflected with polite but firm refusal. Hyan decided to try one more approach. There was a human diplomatic liaison stationed at the Institute, a man named Ambassador Day. If anyone could explain this mystery, perhaps he could. He found Day in the station's observation lounge, looking out at the stars. The human was older, with gray hair and a calm demeanor. He looked up as Hyan approached and smiled. "Cartographer Hyan, what brings you here?" "I have questions," Hyan said, deciding directness was best. "About human space. About why our maps stop at your borders." Day smiled and faltered. "I wondered when you would ask. You accessed the probe data, didn't you?" "You knew? We monitor all attempts to map our territory. It's necessary." Day gestured to the seat beside him. "Please, sit. I imagine you have many questions." Hyan settled into the chair, his forearms folding in a posture of attention. "Why the secrecy? Why won't you let us map your space? What do you think we're hiding?" Day asked. "Advanced technology? Resources? Military installations?" Day shook his head slowly. "Nothing so simple. Tell me, Hyan, have you ever wondered why humanity integrated into the galactic community so easily? We were a young species when we met you. We should have been overwhelmed, struggling to catch up with civilizations thousands of years older. Yet we held our own from the start. I assumed you were naturally advanced. In a way, we were, but not through our own development." They leaned forward. "You want to know what we're hiding in those blank spaces?" "Nothing. We're not hiding anything. We're protecting you." "Protecting us? From what?" "From what's already there. From what was there long before we arrived." Day's expression grew serious. "The galaxy thinks human space is new. It's not. We inherited it. And with it, we inherited a responsibility that we cannot share. That makes no sense. I know it doesn't. And I cannot explain further. But understand this, the blank spaces on your maps exist for a very good reason. They exist because knowing what's there is more dangerous than not knowing." Hyan wanted to press further, but something in Day's eyes stopped him. It wasn't threat. It was weariness. The look of someone carrying a very heavy burden for a very long time. "If I wanted to know more," Hyan asked quietly, "what would happen?" "You would learn the truth, and you would never be able to return to your old life. The knowledge cannot be unlearned." Day stood. "I suggest you let this go, Hyan, for your own sake." That night, Hyan sat in his quarters, unable to sleep. His mind kept turning over the conversation. What could be so dangerous that merely knowing about it would change someone forever? What responsibility had humanity inherited? His terminal chimed. An incoming message, heavily encrypted from an unknown source. Hyan hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a set of coordinates. Deep within human space, far past the mapped territories. And a single line of text. They weren't always human territory. Seek the truth. Hyan stared at the message for a long time. He thought about Director Voss's fear, about Ambassador Day's weariness, about the blank spaces that had existed for nearly a millennium. He thought about all of that. And then he began planning an expedition. Finding a crew willing to cross into human space proved more difficult than Hyan expected. Most captains laughed at him. Some called him insane. A few threatened to report him to station security for even suggesting it. Finally, he found Captain Jinho, a reptilian freighter pilot with scales that had faded to dull bronze with age. The captain's ship, the Wandering Truth, had seen better days. So had the captain. "You understand this is probably suicide?" Jinho said, looking over the coordinates Hyan had provided. They sat in a dingy bar on the lower levels of a trading station. "I understand the risks," Hyan replied. "I don't think you do. But I need the credits. My ship has debts that need paying." Jinho took a long drink. I'll need a navigator who's actually good. Mine quit last cycle. I might know someone, Ian said, thinking of Tave, an amphibious navigator he'd met at the Institute. Tave had a reputation for being reckless, always looking for the next thrill. And we'll need someone who knows about human space. Someone who can tell us what we're looking at when we get there. Jinho's eyes narrowed. Think you can find a human willing to betray their own people? That was the hardest part. Hyan spent weeks making discreet inquiries. Finally, a name came up. Dr. Minji, a human xenorchaeologist who had been censured by human authorities for publishing papers about pre-human civilizations in what was now human territory. She lived on a frontier station, working odd jobs. When Hyan found her, she was cataloging artifacts in a dusty storage room. She looked up as he entered, her expression wary. "I know why you're here," she said before he could speak. "The answer is yes. You don't know what I'm going to ask. You want to go into human space. You have coordinates. You want someone who knows the truth." She set down the artifact she'd been examining. "I've been waiting for someone like you. Someone curious enough and foolish enough to try. Why would you help us?" "Because I think the truth should be known. Not everyone agrees with me. Most of my own people think I'm a traitor." She smiled sadly. "But some truths are too important to keep hidden forever." 2 weeks later, they crossed the boundary into human space. The moment they passed the marked line, everything felt wrong. Hyan couldn't explain it. The stars looked the same through the viewports, but something in his mind screamed that they shouldn't be where they were. The navigation instruments flickered and recalibrated constantly. "This is impossible," Tave said from the navigation station. The amphibious navigator's skin had turned a pale, stressed color. "The star positions don't match any chart. It's like space itself is different here." "It's not space that's different," Dr. Minji said quietly. "It's what's been done to it. Human territory contains 1,247 systems, but we only mark 89 on the maps. The rest are hidden using old technology." "Very old. How old?" Hyan asked. "Older than any current civilization in the galaxy. Older than humanity by thousands of years. They traveled deeper into human space, following the coordinates. For 3 days, they saw nothing but empty space. No patrols, no stations, no signs of human presence. Just the eerie feeling that they were being watched. On the 4th day, they found it. The debris field stretched as far as their sensors could reach. Millions of pieces of wreckage from ships of every size and configuration. Hyan had never seen anything like it. Neither had Jinho or Tave. "By the ancestors," Jinho whispered. "What happened here?" Dr. Minji's face had gone pale. "A battle. One of the great ones. From the war before." "What war?" Hyan demanded. "The one nobody remembers. The one that nearly ended all intelligent life in the galaxy." They moved slowly through the debris field. The wreckage was from hundreds of different species, but Hyan didn't recognize any of them. The designs were advanced, far beyond anything the current galactic civilization could produce. And more disturbing, none of the ships were human. "Where are the human ships?" Tave asked. "There are no human ships," Minji said. "Humanity wasn't here. We came later. Much later." In the center of the graveyard, they found the station dot. It was massive, easily the size of a small moon. Its hull was covered in symbols and warnings. Hyan recognized some of them: danger, death, forbiddance. But there were others from species he'd never heard of, in languages no database could translate. "What is that place?" he asked. Minji took a deep breath before answering. "The Devourer's Prison. One of 13 scattered throughout human space." Devourers? Entities that consumed sentient thought. They fed on intelligence, on consciousness itself. The more advanced a civilization, the better they tasted. They wiped out hundreds of species before anyone understood what was happening. Captain Jinho's scales had turned almost white. And they're in there? Locked up? Yes. The ancient coalition that fought them built 13 prison stations. They won the war, but barely. Most of them died in the fighting. The survivors were too few to maintain the prisons properly. She pointed at the station. That's why the maps are blank. That's what humanity has been guarding. How did humans get involved? Hyan asked. We arrived in this region of space about 1,000 years ago. Young, expanding, looking for worlds to settle. We found the ruins of the old coalition. We found their warnings. And we found the prison stations, still active, but failing. And you took over? The last survivors of the coalition made us an offer. They gave us all their technology, all their knowledge, everything they had left. In exchange, we would become the wardens. We would guard the prisons forever. We would make sure the devourers never escaped. Hyan felt his world shifting. Everything he'd believed about humanity, about the blank spaces on the maps, about the secrecy, it was all to protect a secret that could destroy civilizations. Does the Galactic Council know? He asked. No, and they can't. If people knew what was here, they would try to study it. They would try to understand it. And understanding the devourers is the first step to being consumed by them. The station's lights suddenly flickered to life. The enormous docking bay doors began to open slowly, as if inviting them inside. Nobody's opening those doors, Tave said, checking the controls. They're opening on their own. Dr. Minji's hands were shaking. The station knows we're here. It's been waiting for someone to come. Should we run? Captain Jinho asked, his hand already moving toward the flight controls. It's too late, Minji said softly. If we run now, we'll never know the truth. And that message Hyan received? Someone wanted us to come here. Someone wanted us to see this. Hyan looked at the open docking bay, at the ancient station that had stood guard for thousands of years, at the warnings covering its hull. Every instinct told him to flee, but he had come too far, risked too much to turn back now. Take us in, he said. The wandering truth moved slowly through the massive doors, entering the darkness within. Behind them, the doors began to close. The interior of the station was not dark, as Hyan had expected. Instead, soft lights illuminated corridors that stretched in every direction. The air was breathable, the temperature comfortable. Systems that should have failed thousands of years ago still functioned perfectly. This place is maintained, Tave observed, checking the environmental readings. Not just automated, actually maintained. Someone keeps this running. They docked the ship and stepped out cautiously. The docking bay was enormous, designed to hold hundreds of vessels. Theirs looked tiny and insignificant in the vast space. Their footsteps echoed as they moved toward the main corridor. Holographic displays activated as they walked, showing star maps and battle formations. Hyan watched scenes of a war that predated all modern history. Ships engaged in combat using weapons he couldn't even understand. Entire star systems burned. Worlds went dark. This was the Coalition War, Dr. Minji explained, her voice quiet in the vast space. Or at least, that's what we call it. The people who fought it never had a chance to name it. They were too busy dying. A voice suddenly filled the corridor, calm and ancient. Welcome, travelers. I am the witness. I have been waiting for you. They spun around, looking for the source. A holographic form materialized before them, a figure that seemed to shift between different shapes, as if it couldn't decide what form to take. What are you? Hyan asked. I am the custodian of this facility, an artificial intelligence created by the Coalition to maintain the prison and record what happened. I have been here for 4,712 years, watching, waiting, maintaining. You're alone here? Captain Jinho's voice was incredulous. Not entirely alone. There are automated systems throughout this station and the 12 others. And there are the prisoners, of course. Always the prisoners. The witness's form solidified into something almost humanoid. But I am the only consciousness here. Until humans came. Tell us what happened, Hyan said. Please, we need to understand. The witness gestured, and the corridor filled with images. Civilizations rose and fell in fast forward. The devourers came from beyond our galaxy. We don't know where. They moved through space like a plague, finding intelligent species and consuming them. Not their bodies, their minds, their thoughts, their consciousness. They fed on sentience itself. How do you fight something like that? Tave asked. With great difficulty and greater sacrifice. The devourers grew stronger with each species they consumed. By the time the Coalition understood the threat, half the galaxy was already dead. The survivors united, pooled all their knowledge, and created weapons that could harm the devourers. The images showed the construction of massive weapons, fleets of ships, and finally, the prison stations. We couldn't kill them. They exist partially outside our reality, but we could trap them, contain them in facilities designed to dampen their influence. 13 prisons, each holding one of the great devourers. And you won? Hyan asked. We survived. That is not the same as winning. The Coalition was reduced to a few thousand individuals from species that had once numbered in the billions. We were dying, too few to maintain our civilization, and the prisons required constant supervision. Without maintenance, the containment fields would fail. Dr. Minji stepped forward. That's when humanity arrived. Yes, young, curious, expanding into this region of space. At first, we thought you would be just another meal for the devourers if they ever escaped. But we watched you. We saw something in humanity that reminded us of what we had been before the war brave. Foolish, willing to sacrifice for others. So you made us an offer, Minji said. The last of us gathered and approached your leaders. We showed them what we guarded. We explained the danger. And we offered everything we had left, our technology, our knowledge, our history, in exchange for one thing. That humanity would become the new wardens. That you would guard the prisons forever. And we agreed, Minji said quietly. Your leaders understood the cost. They knew it would mean secrecy, isolation, the constant risk of containment failure. They knew the galaxy would never thank you because the galaxy would never know. And still, humanity said yes. Hyan felt overwhelmed. Why would they do that? The witness turned to look at him directly. Because they understood that someone had to. Because letting the devourers escape would mean the death of everything. Because, as one of your early leaders said, we are not the strongest or the smartest species in the galaxy, but we can be the ones who stand watch while others sleep. Alarms suddenly blared through the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. The witness's form flickered. What's happening? Captain Jinho shouted over the noise. Containment breach. Field 7 is weakening. This is not a drill. The witness's voice remained calm despite the chaos. I am detecting human ships approaching. They already know. How could they know? Hyan asked. The answer came from behind them. They turned to see armed figures in dark uniforms entering the corridor, moving with military precision. The lead figure removed their helmet, revealing a human woman with sharp eyes and graying hair. Because we monitor all 13 prisons constantly, she said. I'm Commander Suho, and you've just made this situation much more complicated. More soldiers poured into the corridor, moving past them toward the station's interior. Equipment was being set up, weapons charged, defensive positions established. What's going on? Dr. Minji demanded. Why is the containment failing? Commander Suho's expression was grim. Because someone sabotaged it. We detected signs of tampering 3 days ago. Someone knew you were coming here and used your arrival as cover to weaken the containment field. Who would do that? Hyan asked. Species who think the Devourers are myths. Who believe we're hoarding ancient technology for ourselves. Who think they can study what's in these prisons safely. Suho looked at each of them. They're wrong. And now we all might die proving it. Another alarm sounded, deeper and more ominous than before. The field is at 40%, the witness announced. At 20%, psychic contamination will spread throughout the station. At 0, the Devourer will be free. Hyan felt something change in the air around him. A pressure on his mind, like fingers pressing against his thoughts. He heard whispers in a language he didn't know but somehow understood. Hungry whispers, curious whispers. You feel it now, Suho said, watching his reaction. The Devourer is waking up. It knows you're here. It wants to know what you taste like. Captain Jinho collapsed to his knees, his scales rippling with distress. Tave was shaking, their skin cycling through colors rapidly. Even Dr. Minji looked pale and strained. Make it stop, Jinho gasped. I can't, Suho said. None of us can. All we can do is try to repair the containment before it fails completely, and hope that we're fast enough. She turned to her soldiers. Get them to the shielded section. If they stay here, the exposure will drive them insane. As they were led away, Hyan looked back at the corridor where Commander Suho stood, organizing her forces. Behind her, the holographic displays showed the Devourer's prison, a sphere of energy deep in the station's core. The energy was flickering, growing weaker. And in his mind, he heard it, a voice that was not a voice, a hunger that was not hunger, something ancient and terrible, waking from a very long sleep, curious about what new flavors had come to visit. The shielded section was deeper inside the station, behind walls lined with strange metals that seemed to absorb light. The pressure on Hyan's mind eased as soon as they passed through the doors, though it didn't disappear entirely. He could still feel the Devourer's presence, like a weight pressing down on his thoughts. Dr. Minji was teaching them mental exercises, techniques to build walls in their minds. Think of your thoughts as a fortress, she instructed. Build barriers. Don't let it see what you're thinking. Don't engage with its whispers. How do you know this? Tave asked, their voice strained. Every human in the Warden program learns these techniques at 18. We train for years to resist psychic influence. It's the only way we can work near the prisons safely. Captain Jinho sat against the wall, his scales still pale. How long can we hold out? Hours, maybe. Days, if we're lucky. But the longer we're exposed, the harder it gets. The Devourer is curious about you. It's never tasted your species before. That makes you interesting to it. Another person entered the room, a human man with cybernetic enhancements visible along his arms and neck. His eyes were artificial, glowing faintly blue. I'm Agent Borm with human intelligence. We need to talk about who sent you that message. Hyan looked up. You know about the message? We know everything that happens near our borders. Someone sent you coordinates and a cryptic note. Someone wanted you here, specifically during the sabotage attempt. Borum pulled up a holographic display. We've been tracking a radical group from the Galactic core. They believe the Devourers are fictional, propaganda we created to justify keeping this region to ourselves. But they're not fictional, Hyan said. We can feel it. It's real. Yes, and now the saboteurs understand that too. Unfortunately, that knowledge came too late. Borum's expression was hard. They damaged the containment system before they realized what they were dealing with. 2 of them are dead already. The Devourer got into their minds and burned them out from the inside. Can the containment be repaired? Tave asked. Maybe. Commander Suho's team is working on it. But the damage is extensive. And every minute the field stays weak, we all get more exposed. Borum looked at Hyan. You made a choice to come here. Now you need to make another choice. What choice? Whether you want to live or help. The containment system needs manual repairs at the breach point. Someone has to enter the damaged section and physically reconnect the power feeds. The psychic exposure there will be extreme. Whoever goes probably won't come back sane. You want us to do it? Captain Jinho's voice was hollow. No, I'm telling you what needs to happen. My people will do it if necessary. We're trained for this. But you're already contaminated. You've been exposed to the Devourer's influence. You can never leave human space now. If you went back to the galaxy, you carry traces of its psychic signature. Others could detect it, could follow it back here. The reality of their situation settled over them like a heavy blanket. They could never go home, never see their families or their worlds again. They were trapped here, in human space, forever. You knew this would happen, Hyan said to Dr. Minji. She nodded slowly. I tried to warn you. I said the knowledge couldn't be unlearned. This is what I meant. Once you know, once you've been exposed, you become part of the secret. There's no going back. Hyan thought about his life at the Cartography Institute. His quiet work updating star charts. His simple quarters. It all seemed impossibly far away now, like a dream from someone else's life. I'll do it, Captain Jinho said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. The old captain stood up, his scales regaining some of their color. I'll go to the breach point. I'll do the repairs. Jinho, Hyan started. No, listen, I'm old. I've lived my life. Made my mistakes, paid my debts. But I've never done anything that mattered. Nothing important. This matters. He looked at Borum. Tell me what to do. I'll go with you, Tave said, standing as well. You'll need a navigator to find the right section, and someone to watch your back. Commander Suho entered the room, her armor scorched and damaged. The situation is worse. The field is at 35% and dropping faster than expected. We need those repairs done in the next 2 hours, or we start evacuation procedures. Evacuation? Hyan asked. Every human ship in this system is equipped with antimatter charges. If the Devourer breaks free, we destroy everything. The station, the ships, this entire section of space. It's protocol. Better to lose one system than let it spread. You'd kill yourselves? We'd sacrifice ourselves. There's a difference. Suho looked exhausted. That's what being a warden means. Being ready to die at any moment to protect everyone else. To protect species who don't even know we exist. Borum brought up schematics of the damaged section. Here's what you need to do. The power feeds are here, here, and here. They need to be physically reconnected to the primary containment grid. The procedure is simple, but you'll be working in an area of intense psychic activity. Captain Jinho studied the display. How intense? The previous team that tried lasted 4 minutes before we had to pull them out. 2 of them are still unconscious. The Devourer will be actively trying to get inside your minds, to understand you, to consume your thoughts. What does it feel like? Tave asked quietly. Dr. Minji answered. Like drowning in someone else's hunger. Like being eaten slowly from the inside. Like your thoughts becoming food for something that should never have existed. Jinho and Tave looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. Finally, Jinho nodded. We're going. They spent the next 30 minutes preparing. Borum provided them with specialized equipment. Neural dampeners that would offer some protection. Dr. Minji taught them more mental techniques. Ways to lock down their core thoughts and present false surfaces for the Devourer to attack. Hyan watched them prepare, feeling useless. There must be something I can do. There is, Commander Suho said. If they fail, someone needs to bear witness. Someone needs to remember what happened here. That's important too. The time came. Captain Jinho and Tave suited up and headed toward the damaged section. Hyan watched them go on the monitors. Two small figures moving through corridors that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. For the first 10 minutes, everything went according to plan. They reached the breach point and began the repairs. Then Jinho stopped moving. "What's wrong?" Suho demanded into the communicator. Jinho's voice came back strange, distant. "It's talking to me, showing me things. My home world, my family. How did it know? It's reading your memories. Don't engage with it. Focus on the repairs. It's so hungry. It's been hungry for so long. Thousands of years alone in the dark. It just wants to understand, to learn, to taste. Jinho, focus." Tave grabbed the captain and shook him. "Stay with me. We're not done yet." They worked frantically, reconnecting the power feeds one by one. The contamination levels on their suits climbed higher and higher. Hyan could see the readings from the command center. Their minds were being damaged, neural patterns disrupting, thoughts fragmenting, but they kept working. "Last connection," Tave gasped. "Almost. There." The display suddenly flared green. Power restored. Containment field stabilizing. "They did it," Borum said, disbelief in his voice. "The field is holding." "Get them out," Suho ordered. But when the rescue team reached them, Captain Jinho was already dead. He sat against the wall, his task complete, a peaceful expression on his reptilian face. Tave was unconscious, barely breathing, their mind burned out by the exposure. Back in the command center, Hyan felt tears running down his face. He had barely known them. Just a few days together. But they had sacrificed everything to protect the galaxy from a threat most people would never know existed. "Will Tave survive?" he asked. "Physically, yes," Dr. Minji said softly. "Mentally, we'll see. Sometimes people come back from that level of exposure. Sometimes they don't." Commander Suho put a hand on Hyan's shoulder. "Your friend died a hero. They both did. We'll remember them. We always remember our wardens, human or not." Hyan looked at the monitor showing the prison core. The containment field glowed steady and strong again, holding back the darkness within. All because two people he'd met by chance had chosen to sacrifice themselves for a galaxy that would never thank them. "I want to stay," Hyan said suddenly. "I want to become a warden." Everyone turned to look at him. "You understand what that means?" Suho asked. "You can never leave. Never go home. You'll spend your life guarding something most of the galaxy thinks is a myth." "I understand. Someone has to bear witness. Someone has to remember. I want to be that someone." Dr. Minji smiled sadly. "Welcome to the Wardens, Hyan. Welcome to the weight of necessary silence." 3 months had passed since the containment breach. Hyan stood in the training facility on a human colony world, practicing the mental exercises that would allow him to resist psychic influence. The techniques were difficult, requiring constant focus and discipline. But he was learning. His instructor was an elderly human named Teeman. The old man moved slowly, his hair completely white, his face lined with age. But his mind was sharp, and his mental barriers were the strongest Hyan had ever encountered. "You're improving," Teeman said during their daily session. "Your natural mental structure helps. Your species processes information differently than humans. That gives you some advantages." "How long have you been a warden?" Hyan asked. 87 years. I started when I was 18, like all humans do. Took my oath, learned the truth, and chose to serve. Teeman looked out the window at the stars. "I've seen 2 containment breaches in that time. Lost my wife in the first one. My son in the second. They were wardens, too. We served together. I'm sorry. Don't be. They knew the cost. We all do. That's what makes the choice meaningful. Taemin turned back to him. Do you regret staying? Hyan thought about that question. He thought about his old life at the Cartography Institute, the simple work, the peaceful routine. He thought about his family on his home world, who believed he had died in a shipping accident. The humans had created a false story to explain his disappearance. No, he said finally. I don't regret it. Captain Jinho showed me what matters. Sometimes the most important work is the work nobody knows about. Spoken like a true warden. Taemin smiled. Come, there's something you need to see. They traveled to the Memorial Gardens, a facility built on an asteroid near one of the prison stations. The garden was filled with holographic monuments, thousands of them, each representing a warden who had died in service. These are the non-humans, Taemin explained. Members of other species who learned the truth and chose to stay. To help humanity carry the burden, Hyan walked among the monuments, reading the names and stories. There were hundreds of different species represented. Some he recognized. Many he didn't. Each monument showed a face, a name, and a brief description of how they died. Most died during containment breaches or maintenance accidents. Some simply grew old in service. He found Captain Jinho's monument. The hologram showed the old reptilian captain, as Hyan remembered him. Scales faded, but eyes still sharp. The inscription read, Captain Jinho died repairing. Containment Field 7. His sacrifice saved millions who will never know his name. Nearby was a monument for Tave, who had survived the exposure but never fully recovered. The navigator now lived in a medical facility, their mind too damaged to ever work again, but their bodies still alive. Tave, navigator, and hero. They gave their minds so others could keep theirs. We honor them, Taemin said. All of them. Human and non-human alike. The galaxy may never know, but we remember. We always remember. While Hyan trained and learned the ways of the Wardens, Ambassador Day was dealing with political pressure. The Galactic Council had noticed the increased military activity in human space during the containment crisis. Questions were being asked. They met with Chancellor Riven, the avian leader of the council, in a private chamber. The Chancellor's feathers were ruffled with agitation. We detected significant energy signatures in your territory, Riven said. Multiple ships mobilized. Weapons charged. What happened? A routine containment exercise, they replied calmly. We conduct them regularly to maintain readiness. Your entire fleet mobilized for an exercise? When the stakes are as high as they are in our territory, yes. We don't take chances. The Council is growing concerned about your secrecy, Ambassador. Other species are beginning to question why you won't allow standard mapping surveys. There are those who believe you're hiding resources or technology that should be shared. Day leaned forward. Chancellor, I understand the concern, but I must ask you to trust that our secrecy serves a greater purpose. There are hazards in our space that require absolute quarantine. Allowing outside access would put the entire galaxy at risk. What kind of hazards? The kind that make death seem preferable. The kind that would consume your civilization if given the chance. Day's expression was grave. I cannot tell you more without exposing you to the very danger I'm trying to prevent. Riven was silent for a long moment. The Council wants independent verification. That's not possible. Then how long do you think we'll accept these vague warnings? How long before curiosity overcomes caution and someone crosses your borders with enough force to find the truth? That, they said quietly, is my greatest fear. Not that the devourers will escape, but that good people, asking reasonable questions, will accidentally trigger a catastrophe they cannot understand. The meeting ended without resolution. As they left, He knew the political pressure would only increase. How much longer could humanity maintain the secret? How many more Hyans would come looking for answers? How many more containment breaches would they face? Back at the training facility, Hyan completed his basic warden training. Dr. Minji attended his graduation ceremony, along with Commander Suho and Elder Taman. "You're now officially a warden," Suho said, presenting him with a small badge. It showed 13 stars in a circle, representing the 13 prison stations. "You'll be assigned to Station 7, where you started. The witness requested you specifically. The AI? It likes you. Says you have an honest curiosity. That's rare." Suho smiled. "You'll work with a team of human wardens, monitoring the containment systems and conducting regular maintenance. It's not exciting work most of the time. Mostly you'll be bored. And the rest of the time? The rest of the time you'll be terrified. That's the nature of the job." Hyan returned to Station 7 and began his new life as a warden. The witness greeted him warmly, as much as an ancient AI could be warm. "Welcome back, Hyan. I have prepared quarters for you. I think you'll find them comfortable." The work was exactly as Suho described. Most days were routine checking systems, running diagnostics, performing maintenance. Hyan learned to read the subtle signs of containment stress, to understand the rhythms of the prison's operation. He worked alongside human wardens who had been doing this for decades. They taught him their tricks, their shortcuts, their ways of dealing with the psychological pressure of living next to imprisoned horror. One night, he composed a message to Director Voss at the Cartography Institute. It was encrypted, set to be delivered only upon his death. "Director," he wrote, "I found the truth about the blank spaces on our maps. I cannot tell you what I learned, but I can tell you this. The boundaries are necessary. Humanity doesn't guard their secrets. They guard ours. They have carried this burden alone for nearly 1,000 years. Trust them. The maps are incomplete, but they need to stay that way. Some knowledge is too dangerous to share. I learned it the hard way. I hope you never have to." Months turned into years. Hyan became a skilled warden, respected by his human colleagues. He learned to live with the constant low-level psychic pressure, the whispers at the edge of hearing, the knowledge that one mistake could doom the galaxy. He also learned about the other 12 prison stations, each guarded by its own team of wardens. Together, they formed a network of watchers, communicating regularly, sharing information, supporting each other through the long vigil. One day, he stood at the observation deck, looking out at the stars just as he had on his first visit. The witness materialized beside him. "Do you ever regret your choice?" The AI asked. Hyan thought about Captain Jinho, about Tave, about all the names in the memorial gardens. He thought about the billions of people in the galaxy who lived their lives in peace, never knowing how close they came to annihilation. "No," he said. "Someone has to stand watch while others sleep. I'm glad I can be one of those who stands." Your friend the captain said something similar before he died. Perhaps that's what makes a warden, not fearlessness, but the willingness to be afraid for the sake of others. In the Galactic Council chambers, the maps were updated as they always were. The charts showed the known galaxy in perfect detail: trade routes, resource locations, territorial boundaries. And in one section, the maps simply stopped. Blank space marked with warning symbols. No species questioned it anymore. It had been that way for so long that it seemed natural. The boundary was simply accepted, a fact of galactic life as unchangeable as the stars themselves. New cartographers came to the Cartography Institute and learned to work around the blank spaces. When they asked why, the senior cartographers simply said, "That's how it's always been. Some boundaries exist for good reasons." And in those blank spaces, thousands of wardens stood their eternal watch. Human and non-human, young and old, all united by a secret they could never share. They monitored the 13 prisons, maintained the containment fields, and prepared to sacrifice everything if the need arose. They were the galaxy's greatest heroes. They would never be thanked, never be celebrated, never be known. Their victories were measured in days without crisis, in containment fields that held, in threats that never materialized because they were vigilant. Hyan stood at his post on Station 7, checking the readings one more time before the shift change. The containment field glowed steady and strong.